perhaps if some of your colleagues at the back of the room will come in to join us, we'll get our second session started. I am very, very aware that we're running more than a half an hour over, so please forgive me and all of our colleagues. We had a lot of issues to get through this morning, and I do believe we had a lot of valuable information coming from people. I think they've all set the scene for where we continue this discussion for the rest of the day. And once again, looking at your roles here as Chief Financial Officers, the responsibility you have, the opportunities you have. And yes, we know there's many challenges there, but I think we heard from many great leaders here this morning that they're not unsurmountable, and we have every confidence in you that you can see it through. Now, we have a slight change to our panel for this afternoon, but a very welcoming change, a nice surprise, and one that we're absolutely very, very honoured to be able to share with you. We heard a little bit this morning about law and order, about trust, about transparency in general, but more importantly within the corporate environment. And our speaker, who's so very kindly popped in to share with us some of his insight, is a gentleman who shares his practical experience, indeed, from his time in the police force here, of course, in Pakistan, and indeed he has coordinated with international agencies around the world in the fight on crime of all sorts. For the past 3 years, he's been here keeping an eye very, very closely on what's going on at a government level, and he is the Federal Tax Ombudsman. I'm absolutely thrilled we've managed to get him here, and I just want to recognise the Canadian Tax Ombudsman who's also joined him here. So knowledge sharing, I would hope, going on, and an exchange of best practices. So please give a very warm welcome. We have the honour of having him here for about 10 minutes, Dr. Shoaib Saddal.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Khalid Rahman, Vice President, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, Mr. Shoaib Saddal, Conference Chair, and Mr. Saqib Masood, Past President and the Chair of Tax Committee, ICAP. And those of you who don't know it, he is also on the advisory committee of the Federal Tax Ombudsman. Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a great pleasure for me to be addressing you this afternoon. You are the backbone of not only the businesses that we have in this country, but also perform a very critical role in relationship to the tax administration in this country. So, let me first of all give you brief ideas about what this institution of Ombudsman is, what the Tax Ombudsman does, and then how the work that you do and I do actually should end up into a relationship of synergy, because I deal with maladministration in the tax department, and you also deal with the tax people from a different angle. So at the end of the day, it will be your competence, your integrity, your insistence on transparency, on openness that will make a difference. An ombudsman is somebody who receives complaints against public functionaries. And if you are a tax ombudsman, you receive complaints against the tax functionaries. So that is the job I do. To enable me to perform this job, I have, been sufficiently empowered under the law. I can ask not only any tax official, but anybody, in fact, to appear before me. I can call for the documents. I can issue commissions for various investigations and for recording of the evidence. I also have powers under the Criminal Procedure Code, and which means if there is a need, I can go and seal any premises, any documents, any computers, whatever. And in extreme cases, I can even issue warrants. And then I also have the powers of contempt. So if I issue a certain direction and that is not followed by the functionaries of the FBR or indeed by anybody else, so that is the extreme measure which I can take. But having said that, I have a PhD degree in white-collar crime, and it is there that I sort of studied the various aspects of the horizontal and vertical equity in the tax system. And so it was one of the hypotheses that I tested then, back in 1987, that if a government wants to collect more revenue, it cannot do so through coercion, through bullying the taxpayers, but exactly by doing the opposite. So, the better administered a tax revenue department, the more is the tax collection. Basically, it is this relationship that we need to change, and I think you can play a very critical role in that. The genesis of this relationship go back to our, pre-47 history, because when you are a colony and the relationship is that of between natives and the rulers, so it is only natural that you develop a tendency to hate everyone who works for the government. But now that we are in our own independent country, we need to change this. I deal with matters of maladministration. There is a very wide definition of maladministration. It includes things like delay, lack of response, any arbitrary decision, any decision which is unjust, which is unfair, which is unreasonable, which is based on corrupt motives, and so on and so forth. So, except if it is an issue exclusively pertaining to assessment or pertaining to classification, then I normally say, well, this is something for which you should go to the normal courts. Otherwise, we entertain your complaints, or complaints of, your employers or whatever the relationship is. Normally, I receive about 1,500 complaints a year. These are the formal complaints that we receive.